In this episode, we speak with Quinn Slack, the co-founder and CEO of Sourcegraph, a leading code intelligence platform revolutionizing how developers understand, fix, and automate their code. Founded in 2013, Sourcegraph uses the power of AI with Cody, their AI coding assistant, to help developers better understand their code. Over 1 million engineers use Sourcegraph to improve code security, efficiently onboard developers, promote code reuse, resolve incidents, and boost code health. Before Sourcegraph, Quinn was the co-founder of Blend Labs, which created a platform to transform consumer banking experiences and streamline workflows for their teams. Currently, he is a board member of Hack Club, a national nonprofit that brings coding clubs to high schools nationwide. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to follow. Quinn, great to meet you, and thanks for taking the time to chat with us.
Yeah, thank you, RJ. Great to meet you too.
So I was thinking about where to start because we've been speaking with a lot of AI companies. I think your company does something different than the others in that you have this nifty tool that I think a lot of people already know about in the engineering community called Cody. So do you think that's a good place to start? We could talk about Cody, what it does.
Yeah, let's start there. So Sourcegraph, we are a code intelligence platform, and that means understanding code. That's what we've been doing since we started 10 years ago. And yeah, I could go into the history, but that's the hard thing about coding. It's not writing the code. That's the fun part. That's the easy part. It's actually understanding the code. And that's where we tried to get really good.
Excellent. And you are I guess, a coder by nature. That's what you study. You study computer science, as I understand, and in Stanford. We'll go back even further. Did you grow up in Mill Valley?
No, I grew up in Chicago, so not in Silicon Valley, but I loved coding as a kid. And I loved this idea that you could build something on the internet and nobody knew how old you were. And they would use what you built and they'd share and you'd learn from the best. You could read code from other people that were experts. And so as a kid growing up in Chicago, I remember this feeling of getting to participate in this amazing open source community. And yet nobody I knew in person actually coded. And I felt embarrassed saying words like PHP. Was I pronouncing it correctly? I didn't know. So, this internet and coding is this amazing connector and great equalizer. What had a huge impact on me. You can draw a straight line from that feeling of creation that I could have as a kid, in the middle of the country to what we do today, because we want to ultimately make it so that everyone codes with Sourcegraph. That's our mission. But, after I was getting into coding myself, I started to work on some big open source projects, these big complex code bases. And it's hard to understand. It's like diving into a totally new research field. You got to read so much. It takes weeks or months to get up to speed. And so naturally, I would set up these tools, these code search tools. This is more than 10 years ago to understand the code. Kind of like, you use Google to understand things in your everyday life. You use code search to understand code. And I kind of assumed that everyone did that. How else would you come up to speed on a big code base? But then got into some real companies, was working with my co-founder inside of big banks, JP Morgan and Bank of America, with really smart people, also tons of code and complexity, but they didn't have this kind of tool. And even back then, it was so hard to build software, and especially hard to build software when you didn't have some way to search it and understand it and see who wrote this or why is this broken. So that's the problem that we set out to solve.
And was it this kind of passion for coding, or was it the challenge of being able to undertake and build a tool such as Cody that compelled you to start the company?
It was both. And really, we wanted to solve our own problem, that problem that we felt. And this was when, of course, 10 years ago when we started Sourcegraph, AI existed. It's been around for decades, but the capabilities were nothing like what we had today. So we did not start with AI. We started by building like a code search, a Google for all the code. And I remember this moment 2 weeks after we started building Sourcegraph. We were using Sourcegraph as we were coding it. And I used this very nascent product that we had built to find a bunch of code that is exactly what I needed. And in the first 2 weeks, it saved me more than 2 weeks of time. And that was when it really clicked for me that we were onto something. And again, at this point, it had nothing to do with AI. And we built a great business on code search over the last 10 years. We have 2.5 million developers using Sourcegraph. We have 4 out of 5 of the FANG companies. We have Uber and Reddit. 6 out of 10 of the biggest software companies in the world, the US government. So tons of devs and companies using code search, but that's all pre AI. And what we were really doing was building a product that understood code and made it so that humans could find that information. And it turns out that understanding of code, that's the most critical thing because that's what AI needs as well. For AI to write good code that works, that fixes a bug, or that adds a new feature to your application, it's got to understand your code base. So that critical piece, in a way, all along, we were just getting ready for this moment when AI could make use of what we had in understanding code 100 or 1,000 times better than any human. And it's funny, we went back to look at our seed fundraising deck from 2013, and the final step that we laid out to investors and to our team was intelligent automation. That's IA. I think at the time, if we had said AI, we would have been laughed out of the room. This was in one of those cyclical AI winters. But we knew that we had to build that understanding of code, build that data about code. And that would be a prerequisite for doing anything interesting with AI in code. And look where you are today. It's incredibly exciting. And we now have built Cody. It's incredibly powerful and accurate because it understands code. And it's really thrilling.
Mm-hmm. How was the transition from being focused on building a product to building a company? Was it palpable or was it somewhat seamless, like you just morphed into a startup founder? How was it for you, or was it a distinct transition?
I think one of the wonders of the human mind is you can have these very painful processes where you made a ton of mistakes. And then you look back and you're like, yeah, that was fun. And that's how I see it. It took us a long time. We started the company in 2013 and we didn't get our first big customer until the end of 2018. So that's 5 years. So it took a while and we were really focused on building a great product. Now, throughout that time, we did have a lot of developers using us for free on public open source code. So we knew that we were building a useful product, but it's one thing to build a great product. It's another thing to find a customer for it. And in particular for us, as I think with every company, there's always some nuance. We didn't quite realize it, but code search is a product that big companies need more than small companies. So a lot of times tech startups get their start by selling their product to their friends' companies that have 3 people and that, can make a really quick buying decision. For us, code search was really valuable for companies with a lot of code. And so we needed to make it work and scale and meet the requirements of companies like Uber and FANG companies, which were our first customers. And we got there, but it took us a lot longer than it would have taken if we were just selling to our friend's 3-person company. So by the time we did go to market, we were able to grow way faster at that point. And throughout this, the thing that kept our team going is that it's a product that we ourselves loved, and we knew that this would be massive. So I'm incredibly grateful to our team for sticking it through, and we bridged that gap, thankfully.
A lot of entrepreneurs, when they reflect back, they remember the ups and downs, and then they become better at managing through the ups and downs. Did you face, like, I guess, more volatility in that regard in your early days as an entrepreneur, or are you more of an even person and you can kind of just keep going methodically?
I'm a pretty even person. I knew that when we started Sourcegraph, if nothing else, we build a great product that we ourselves would love. And that gave me a lot of solace. But what I've learned being a CEO now of a company with 200 people, with tons of demanding customers, with need to innovate, and we're figuring out brand new stuff with how to use AI for code, is people don't want their CEO to be too chill. They want to see that their CEO is worried, does see the bad things, does have a sense of what's going on. And even though that's in my mind, I need to make sure that everyone on the team sees that so that they don't think that I'm covering my eyes and just am going along. So I've learned so much along the way, but that's one big thing. I need to bring the team along in my thought process. And for me, that's also been really valuable because I'm not in this alone. We've got 200 crazy people who believe in this mission to make it so everyone codes. And I certainly never felt that I had all the answers, but I also don't have to go through this by myself. And there are people here that have made big bets, that have invested serious portions of their life and that view this as their life's work. And we're in this together. That's incredibly motivating. And I think I've learned how to bring more people along with me. That's been really good for me and I think for the whole company.
Yeah, a key element to building a unique company and profound company is the ability to attract the right talent and retain that talent. And so culture plays a role. How would you define the culture at Sourcegraph?
Well, it's all based on dev love, love for developers, love for the idea of code. And we have people at Sourcegraph that are incredibly successful, great team members that are not developers themselves, but they appreciate what developers have done for the world and they have respect for that. That is the most important thing. I think there were definitely some people that looked at Sourcegraph as, hey, this is a rocket ship and want to join. What we found is the people that are the most successful, the people that build the best things for our customers are people that love code. Going back to me as a kid, this idea that it's this great equalizer, this thing that anyone around the world, you don't need to know who that person is, how old they are, where they're from, what their background is. All it takes is a computer, an internet connection, and anyone can create things with code. That's this incredible disruptive idea that's absolutely profound. And appreciation for that is so important to have. And then another thing is an all remote company, we need people that are really high agency. So, if you see something, as the signs in the subway say, if you see something, say something. Well, that's not how it works at Sourcegraph. If you see something, do something. We're a small company. And especially for us to hire people, give them a ton of ownership, we need them to be really high agency there. So some of our best ideas have come from someone who had an idea and just went and built it and showed it. And that's critical if we're all remote. And for us, we are not antisocial. That's not why we're all remote. We're all remote because when it comes down to it, we want to hire the very best people. And I'm not going to say no to someone just because they live somewhere else. And we've had to build the company around that to make that work. Just now, actually, I'm meeting with a bunch of team members in person. So that FaceTime is critical, but all remote has served us really well. And we have been partially remote or all remote for all of our history.
And so do you think you can move at a faster pace because you can find talent anywhere in the world?
Yeah, ultimately, it's about finding the best people and also giving them an environment where they can be effective. So, you can't say find the best person, have that person work in complete isolation. We bring the company together twice a year. We meet up in person all the time. Just, in December, went on a tour of Europe, met with a bunch of team members, went basically all the way up to the North Pole to meet with a team member who lives up there. So we really make an effort to bring people together to build that human bond because that is needed. But otherwise, yeah, you get the very best people by being able to hire from anywhere and being able to offer a lot of flexibility around where and how they work.
Do you worry at all about competition, or is that not really a focus of yours? You're more honed in on what you're producing for your set of customers, your set of developers.
There's a healthy level of focus that every company needs to have on the competition. The competition is basically a bunch of other really smart people who are thinking about the same problems and working really hard to build great things. Now, we also have our customers asking us about the competition, and we need to be able to educate them on how to make that decision. So, yeah, competition is really important. GitHub Copilot is some competition here in code AI. And our differentiator is that we understand the code better. So the code that Cody writes is better. It looks more like the code that you would want your senior engineers to write rather than something you'd see on the internet that's boilerplate. Cody will do a better job of answering questions about your code base, tough questions about your code base. So that's a really clear differentiator. And there's a lot of really fun ways to show that off. Asking a question, what is squirrel? Squirrel happens to be something in code that Cody knows. But if you ask GitHub Copilot or other tools, it'll say squirrel is a bushy-tailed animal that eats acorns. So there's some really fun ways to show off how that code understanding actually makes Cody better for users. But ultimately, we didn't make it better because we needed to beat the competition. We made it better because we have this vision for making it so everyone codes, for making it so that AI can take the toil away from pro developers. And that as a company, we have to educate our customers on why they would choose this over other things.
Switching gears a little bit to that journey in building the company, you've raised capital. I think your last round was with the notable investor Andreessen Horowitz. How was that overall process for you from the very early days? Was capital raising something that you worked at, or did it kind of come to you and it was more organic?
The way we think about capital is we want to remain an independent company in control of our destiny, and we want to build Sourcegraph for the long term. That's important for a lot of reasons, but one is just that we want to remain independent and universal so that Cody is able to tap information about code no matter where it lives from all these other tools that know things about your code. We hear from our customers that they have information about their code in their Jira and their Confluence and their Google Docs and their Datadog, all these other tools. And we need to remain independent so that we can be the Switzerland. We can be that universal platform. So we've taken a different view. And as a company that's been around for 10 years, we've proven that we have staying power. We are completely committed. So with capital raising, we take a much more long-term view, not how do we raise money so that we can go spend it all in 2 years on crazy short-term growth. It's how can we make it so that we have a long-term foundation. And we've got an incredibly supportive board there who's willing to let us make the kind of investments and have the kind of long-term view that I think a lot of other companies would struggle to do. So Andreessen, Sequoia, Goldcrest, Redpoint, Kraft, and other investors have been really supportive. I think that each company raising capital is different. For us, we did choose to have this long-term view to want to remain independent. I know that's not the right decision for every company, but that's what we've done. And we were really lucky to find investors that are aligned with this and see Sourcegraph as not something that is going to flip in 2 years, but as one of the companies in their portfolio that could be $100 billion or $1 trillion company, because ultimately code is the most valuable asset. And they are very supportive of us continuing on the trajectory to build that kind of company.
Excellent. And at this point in the company's life cycle, what are you most focused on personally?
Making a great product. That's the thing that matters most.
Hmm.
Everything else is stuff that we can optimize. And how do I spend my time? It's talking a lot with our customers, with our users, using our product a lot. I still love coding. And I would be kind of suspicious about using a product from a dev company where the CEO doesn't code. I think you got to have that connection. Working with our engineers and product team and staying on the forefront of what's possible with AI, you know, going to hackathons, all that, staying really current, because ultimately it's all about the product. And if you do everything else right and you get the product wrong, it doesn't matter because it's all about the product.
And what do you consider to be the biggest challenge to scaling?
There's a lot of challenges in scaling. One of the things that really hits me is that AI is just completely a new way of doing things, even for software engineering, where I think the adoption of AI has changed the field of software engineering more than it has any other field so far in terms of actual real impact, not just hype. But even so, it's really frequent that we hear from companies where publicly they'll be talking about how they are leaders in adopting AI on their engineering team. And then we actually find out that they're still in the exploratory phase. I think there's a lot of worries. There's still a lot of people getting used to using AI in their workflow. There's developers who had a bad experience maybe a year ago with some other product and haven't tried it again. So even though there's so much hype, it's still very early in terms of adoption. So even if you look at GitHub's numbers, they have about 100 million MAU and about a 1.5 million yearly actives for GitHub Copilot, which means well less than 1.5% of their own users are using GitHub Copilot. And we've heard so much about AI. So how do we go from 1% to even 20% or 100%? And that's the big question. And that's why it all comes down to product, because the product that exists with Cody, with anything in AI, they are absolutely revolutionary and mind blowing, but they are not the kind of form factor that's gotten 100% of developers to use them yet. And that's the big puzzle for us. How do we make it so Cody is smarter? How do we make it so that it helps automatically with more tasks? How do we make it so that it's easier? All of these things, it's a million different things that we got to do. It's not one big scientific innovation in a lab. It's all the hard work of taking a lot of great potential and building a product that's so smooth, so easy that developers absolutely love it.
Now that you're kind of focused on really the product and the company, is there kind of someone out there that you look to? It could be a visible or not very visible figure in the area of business, but someone you look to and say, I'd like to model the way I operate as a founder and executive. I'd like to model that person.
Looking from the outside, I think that the kind of people that have the biggest impact on me are the people that saw technology way before anyone else and used it. And I even look outside of the technology industry for that because technology is everywhere. So recently I was reading some biographies of Nelson Rockefeller at Standard Oil. and Admiral Nimitz in the Pacific in World War II, LBJ, and each of those found new kinds of technology. Nimitz knew that battleships were not the right technology for the future, and that was a crazy technological idea at the time. Ultimately, he was right. We don't have battleships anymore. LBJ, this is a small thing, but he used a helicopter to campaign back when helicopters were incredibly risky and brand new. And people would flock to the town square to see this politician show up in a helicopter just to see the helicopter. It's like if there was a candidate who was walking around campaigning with the Vision Pro and people wanted to go see the Vision Pro. At the time I'm speaking, it's about to be released. Nelson Rockefeller and Standard Oil, this idea of being able to get illumination in your home was absolutely revolutionary before the light bulb. And all of these things seemed crazy, and now they seem so obvious. And that is incredibly inspiring when, as I just said, the adoption of AI, even though there's so much excitement, it's 1% of what it could be. And the capabilities are 1% of what they could be. And we need to keep powering on and know that the world is going to be completely different in 5 years or 10 years. And hopefully get to the point where my grandkids think that, hey, Grandpa, why did you do this? Didn't they always have this? And that would make me feel really proud if we can make this so prevalent. And there's a lot of great examples in history of people that have done that. And it just seems so obvious in hindsight.
Very cool. Last two questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who has had a profound influence on you?
Well, I would say people like Rockefeller, people like Nimitz, these people that were technological visionaries and not in the tech industry.
Got it. Okay, last question. Can you tell us about a charity, cause, or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
I love this organization called Hack Club. Hack Club is based on the idea that, as I felt when I was a kid, that code is about creation. And if we can get people all around the world in high school and earlier creating things on the internet with each other and have a community to do that, then that's going to give them a ton of confidence. That's going to give them leadership skills. That's going to help them get ready to be really productive and happy members of society. And I think if you look at how this has been done in the past with Girl and Boy Scouts and Eagle Scouts in the past, I mean, those are great organizations, but that's about, outdoor skills and other things like that, which are important. But there's a whole next level of impact you can get by learning to code. And there's a level of confidence you can get by learning to code because you can do that as well as the experts in the field if you're a very talented and motivated high schooler. And so Hack Club is a community. It's after school clubs. It's a community online where kids can participate and create things together. And for me, going back to my experience, I didn't know anyone when I was in middle school and high school who coded in real life. The only people I talked to were on the internet. And yet you have these clubs at high schools where if you play football, well, all evening you are spending time with other football players. If you do orchestra, if you do improv, it's all these in-person things. And so Hack Club has created this in-person, this social group that is making it so that way more people are getting into coding. People that might not like going and coding in their room by themselves, but doing that with other people. And it's bringing a whole different kind of person into coding as well. So I'm so excited by what Hack Club is doing and the impact it's having on tons and tons of young people all around the world.
Awesome. That's a good note to end on. Well, Quinn, want to thank you again for taking the time. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you very much, RJ.